of the two. We proceed on this Tuesday. There's a phone number. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You want to tweet at the show? Feel free. At the back page is where you hit me there on Twitter. At the back page. Our producer engineer extraordinaire tonight is the great John Belmer, who's working on the show for us in Houston. Much appreciated to him for working with us tonight. So, and for those of you watching, because you can watch the show, you can listen to us obviously on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. But for those watching the show on Twitch tonight, I apologize in advance. I look like death warmed over. I had a very long night last night, and I'm not asking anybody for sympathy, but it's just after we finished the show, I was booked to do Fox News at 1 a.m. on the West Coast, which is 4 a.m. on the East Coast for Fox and Friends first. And then I was booked to do CNN at 5 a.m. for their show Early Start with Christine Romans. It was actually my first, believe it or not, all the years I've been doing this talking head stuff, I've never been on CNN. Last night was the first time, John Belmer, that I was on CNN. I've done Fox News a ton, done MSNBC a lot, but it was the first time I did CNN. Oh, that's nice of you. The only thing missing was James Earl Jones going, "This is Jason Page." That would have been cool if they just had like James Earl Jones, because James Earl Jones is the voice of CNN. He goes, "This is CNN." I mean, you can't even do James Earl Jones' voice justice. There's nothing I could do, you know. But yeah, that would have been the only thing missing from that appearance last night. So I had to do one appearance at 1 a.m., one at 2 a.m. My show ends at 10 p.m. on the West Coast, so I had to stay awake for 3 hours. By the way, should I mention that it took me 2 hours just to get TV ready? I finished the show last night. I walked into my my bedroom where my partner was sitting, and I said, "We got a problem." He's like, "What?" I said, "I got to do TV, and I don't have anything that makes me look good for TV right now." So I was like, "We got some work to do. We're gonna need all 3 hours to get this right." I hate it though. Here's what I hate. I hate having to go on TV to do these types of stories, and obviously Damar Hamlin was the topic. And one of the last big things I was called to do was Kobe Bryant. Literally, can I tell you the story real quick? Belmer, I was when Kobe Bryant's helicopter went down, I was literally the second voice on the air to talk about it after Mike Tirico on MSNBC. Like, they hadn't even yet said that he had perished in the crash, and I was on the air. It was Mike Tirico, and now for Mike Tirico, let's go to Jason Page, and the audience is probably going, who? Who? But now I feel like I'm the doom and gloom guy. You know, I'm the guy you bring on when something terrible happens. I don't want to be that guy. But thus, that is my lot in life, I guess. And you know what? I guess I consider it somewhat of a privilege that people trust me enough to come on and talk about these things that require sensitivity and nuance and context and all of that. But it wears on you. And I mean, my conversation with Fox News last night, I was on for 11 minutes. I was like, my God, am I doing the whole show with you guys? I'm like, Jesus. Oh, that I'm used to by now. I've gotten the catatonic thing down pretty good. Yeah, I do the Walt Disney really well. I'm totally frozen. Just frozen. You wouldn't know if the screen froze or if I'm just standing still. Yeah, no, you do this enough. You know, I've kind of gotten used to doing it. And plus, I've done TV outside of the talking head stuff where I've hosted shows and things like that. So here's where I'm at in this Damar Hamlin story. First of all, we're all hoping for the best. And I felt like in this regard, we did a really good job with this last night. And this isn't to pat ourselves on the back, but from the moment we came on the air last night, the very first person we had on the air 12 minutes into the show was a doctor, an ER doc, somebody who has seen people come into the ER with the sorts of symptoms and situations that Damar Hamlin was in. So I felt like we covered it well from that perspective. And then we sort of went from there, and we talked with Nick Ferguson, a former NFL player, to kind of give us some perspective as to what it's like from a player point of view and that sort of thing. And from the moment this thing happened, it felt like a cardiac arrest story as a result of being hit in the chest at just the worst time possible. And we were pretty much spot on with the way that went. Now, there's going to be a further look and an overview of how all this happened and how it transpired, but it seems like we now have a really good perspective on what took place last night, how it all came about. But obviously, there's going to be more investigation into it. The one thing we all hope for right now is Damar Hamlin comes out of this. We now know from loved ones that he had to be resuscitated twice on the field last night. So his heart stopped twice. And the big concern is obviously losing oxygen to the brain. How long did it happen? And that's going to probably dictate where we go from here in this story. That's not speculation. Everybody's talking about don't speculate. That's reality. That's medicine 101 is how long you're deprived of oxygen to the brain. He's on a ventilator right now. He is sedated. We'll wait and see what happens, and we'll obviously hope for the very best. Now the story starts to shift from the actual injury itself, because it's all a waiting game when it comes to Damar Hamlin. There's not much more we can say, to everything surrounding it, from the way the NFL reacted on the field, from the way the NFL reacted off the field, from the way this has been covered, to what happens with this game that these two teams were playing which seems so inconsequential in the overall scheme of things. But the reality is the NFL has a league to run, and they still have to figure out how they're going to address the fact that you have two teams at the top of the conference that have to figure out how they're going to rectify this matter of finishing this game or deeming it in some way a tie or not counting it in the standings. I don't know what they do. I'm not sure what the league does. They're going to have to figure it out. But it's something that is, whether anybody likes it or not, part of the overall story of what took place last night. So we're going to get into all of that as we go through the show tonight. As I said, we'll be joined by Grant Fuhr, who I had already previously booked for tonight. And when you have a Hockey Hall of Famer coming on, a Hall of Fame goaltender, you don't tend to cancel that. But we'll have an interesting conversation with him as somebody who has been around the league for a long time, as somebody who played the game for a long time in the NHL. I'll be curious to get his thoughts even on the story of Damar Hamlin, because in hockey you see all sorts of injuries and all sorts of situations where you have worry and concern for your teammates. So we'll talk with Grant Fuhr coming up a little later on this hour, and I got a whole bunch of things I want to talk to him about regarding the NHL. So we'll do that coming up a little later on in this hour, about 20 minutes from now. Matt Verderame, one of our NFL guys, who I love to talk with, will join us coming up in an hour and 20 minutes at 11:40 p.m. Eastern. And we'll get some thoughts with him on the league, the reaction to this, and the whole matter of what was happening from the moment Damar Hamlin went unconscious on this field in Cincinnati to where we are now and where we go from here. The one thing I will say is this, and I said this on the TV shows I was on last night because I was asked this repeatedly during these interviews that I was on the other end of, as opposed to usually doing the interviews I'm being interviewed. And the one thing I will continue to say is this story, and anybody who's heard me, and John Belmer, who cuts our promos for our show and is producing tonight, knows nobody has been more of a stickler on the idea of player safety than me. Nobody has been more outspoken on the issue of player safety than me. This, what happened last night, is not a player safety issue. And people could try to make it that all you want. And you could try and tie it to concussions and all of that stuff. This is not a player safety issue. However, what takes place from now until the Bills and Bengals get back on the field, all of that is a player safety issue of sorts. And I want to talk about that coming on the other side because I have a lot of concerns in that regard. We'll do that coming back. 1-800-224-2004 from anywhere in America. If you saw what happened last night, if you've been following the story and want to talk about it, you're more than welcome to do so. 1-800-224-2004. Again, you can hit me up on Twitter as well, at the back page. Again, on Twitter, at the back page. We'll come back. More to say. More to delve into on the Damar Hamlin story and more as we continue on the Cash-In. Good to have you with us on a Tuesday on SportsMap Radio. One of the issues happened? He put up a 150 burger. That's crazy. The scoring in the league is just insane. Not like this, man. This shit is happening every night in the league now. You got LeBron putting back-to-back 40-point games in his 20th season in the league. Nobody loves LeBron more than me, but come on already. It's becoming the YMCA. Giannis had 55 tonight, and it's like, ho-hum, whatever. Really, I'm at that point where it's no longer that impressive. I think some of it's defense. I think it's the the style of play in the league, but I also think it is I lost my train of thought. It is the no take foul thing. You're getting a lot more baskets in transition. Oh, there you go. Really? What the hell? Well, then somebody's got to talk to engineering. There's got to be a reason. Yeah. 26 minutes past the hour. The caching continues on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Again, apologies to anybody who's watching on Twitch tonight. I look like absolute death. I'm just not. I just don't look like myself. If you're having issues calling in, we're trying to get it rectified. My apologies. 1-800-224-2004. We've been having phone issues the last couple of days. 800-224-2004 on Twitter at the back page. Grant Fuhr, Hockey Hall of Famer, coming up in 13 minutes. He's actually working on TV broadcasts for the Seattle Kraken's AHL affiliate, the Coachella Valley Firebirds. So interested to talk to him about the transition. He was an NHL head coach. He's done everything around the league. He's also a really good golfer. I told him I want to play golf with him because he's out here in the Coachella Valley where I live. So here's where I'm at in terms of the league on this whole thing. So what transpired last night, to me, is not a player safety issue, because if you have to start legislating how offensive players, after catching a football or running into a player, if your head goes down and it hits the player in the chest, we're going to pass. Then we might as well just end the game now. We might as well just say, you know what, we're finished. There is no NFL as you know it. They're already going to extremes to protect quarterbacks, which, by the way, they have to do. Whether we get grumpy and cantankerous at some of the calls that sometimes are made on roughing the passer and things like that. And obviously now, you've had the change in the concussion protocol with Tua, Tagovailoa, and everything we've seen there. There's obviously a need for player safety in terms of how the league is handling it. There's no question about that. But what happened last night to me is not an issue of player safety. What it is, though, is another opportunity for the league to show that player safety is first and foremost on their minds. And from what we're hearing and what we could discern from the conversations that took place last night on the air with Joe Buck and the team at ESPN calling the game on Monday Night Football, to where we are today, what happened after the game with Troy Vincent, the executive vice president of operations for the NFL, a former player in the league, who's apparently sold his soul to the league. And I don't use those words lightly. To where we are today with Joe Buck describing what happened in the moments following Damar Hamlin going down with this injury. So let me explain it this way. So after Damar Hamlin goes down with the injury, ambulance comes out on the field. He's taken off the field about 30 minutes after he initially gets hit. Now, what we've also learned is, again, that he was resuscitated twice on the field, which means his heart stopped beating twice while he was on the field. But with all that having been said, after he was taken off the field, you repeatedly heard Joe Buck say, in fact, 5 times you heard Joe Buck say, the players are going to be given a 5-minute warm-up period. And then, we're going to look to resume play. Now, Joe Buck said that 5 times. You could think whatever you want about Joe Buck as a play-by-play guy, the deadpan nature. Is he funny? Is he not funny? You can go into all that you want. There's one thing Joe Buck has never done in all the years I've been listening to him, and I've been listening to him a long time, and I'm a huge guy when it comes to play-by-play because I've worked in play-by-play. He's not a guy that's going to go rogue. He's not the guy that's going to go off on his own and simply make something up out of absolute dust. He's not that guy. There might be guys in the industry. He is not. So when Joe Buck says that there's going to be a 5-minute warm-up period, and by the way, you see Joe Burrow on the sideline staying warm and getting loose in the moments after the ambulance leaves the field, I absolutely believe him. Now, it turns out, after the game, Troy Vincent, the executive vice president of operations for the NFL, former Miami Dolphin, came out and said, that's absolutely not true. That never happened. That would be ridiculous. It would be totally inconsistent with all these different things, saying it did not happen. Now, today, the New York Times and the New York Post, my buddy Andrew Marchand, who does a great job at the New York Post covering sports media, and the New York Times have both put out stories with Joe Buck giving his side of the story. And ESPN put out a statement today saying, hey, we were getting the information being conveyed on the air by Joe Buck was the information we were getting as we were in constant communication with the league. I won't waste too much time trying to decipher or interpret what that means. I'll make it very simple. The league was telling us that these guys are going to get a 5-minute warm-up period, and then they expect them to finish this game after this kid nearly died on a football field. Okay? I'll do it for you. That's exactly what the NFL was saying in that situation. Now, as we sort of do I'm trying to use my words carefully here. As we go and look back at this in retrospect, the NFL, moments after this kid came off the field, thought the best idea was to go out and finish playing this football game. There's no getting around that at this point. That is what the NFL was expecting would happen. That these two teams, after watching this kid nearly die on a football field, we're going to be expected, hey, man, show must go on. We got to play the game. Now, in the quote-unquote fog of war and the fog of chaos that could take place in a situation like this, I don't think anybody would have had a difficult time sort of saying, not the best decision, but in the end, they got it right, and they decided not to finish playing the game. But the problem is, and it always is with the NFL, the problem is with the cover-up. The problem is with the need to treat your audience and treat your fan base and treat the media like we're a bunch of idiots. And the NFL has had a litany of these sorts of issues over the years where they've put fans, the media, players in a position where there's no trust of anything you say. Because everything that's come out from last night till now tells us you were expecting to play the game. And again, ultimately they got it right and they decided not to play. And who knows, maybe it was the players rebelling and the coaches and the staff for these teams standing up and saying, we're not playing. And as a group saying that, the NFL would have had no choice at that point but to suspend the game and figure out what they're going to do at a later date. But it isn't the fact that they said, hey, we're going to continue playing this game after a 5-minute warm-up period. The problem is that they're lying about it. And they get away with this time after time after time. And see, the beauty of what I do as a talk show host that owns his own show and doesn't have to worry about the NFL calling my bosses and saying, no, he can't say that. See, if anybody on Fox Sports or ESPN goes out and says these things, they risk getting a call from the man upstairs. I'm not talking about God. The man upstairs being, the EVPs and the communications directors of the NFL and saying, no, you can't say that about us because we're paying you millions and millions of dollars, or you're paying us millions and millions of dollars, and we have these partnerships in place. You can't say anything bad about us. This isn't a player safety issue. I'll say it again. I'm not trying to defend the league. What happened last night isn't a player safety issue. It is a competence issue in terms of the league and how they decide to make decisions in terms of playing a game or not playing a game. But it's not a player safety issue. I'm not going after him on those grounds. And I have to wonder how anybody could trust anything the league does in these situations, whether it's concussions, whether it's a guy getting hit in the chest like he did last night. And it looks like, from all accounts, the medical staff on hand, independent and team officials, everybody did everything they could to save this kid's life. But how do you trust the league in terms of handling player safety from the mental standpoint now? And how the Bills and Bengals move on from this? How can you trust them when they've lied to you about the mistakes they made last night? And again, they're mistakes not of malice, but again, the chaos that's going on. We'll talk about this some more later in the show. Grant Fuhr, Hockey Hall of Fame goalie, on the other side on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Yeah, because somebody just texted me and said they were getting hang-ups. What a bleeping mess. No, he's live. Let me know when we have a minute left.
A defender is coming from an awkward angle, an offensive lineman or an offensive player Hello?
Hey, Grant, Jason Page. How are you, man?
How are you?
Just living the dream, my man. Just living the dream. All right, we're going to get started. This is only going to be an audio interview. I just like the audio quality better through FaceTime, okay. So that's why I'm using that. Plus, it just gives you a chance to look at me in all my glory. Oh, boy. All right, stand by. We're going to get started in 1 second. Great to be with you on this Tuesday. SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app. You can watch us on Twitch, twitch.tv. Jason Page 77 there. I was lucky a few weeks ago. I got to go out to the first game of the AHL affiliate for the Seattle Kraken, the Coachella Valley Firebirds, who opened up like their first 20-plus games on the road this season before their arena was finally ready for prime time. And they played their first game a couple weeks back at Acrisure Arena just outside of Palm Springs, California, where I live. And while I was there, I was lucky enough to be introduced to our guest tonight on the show. Our 2-for-1 is Grant Fuhr, Pro Hockey Hall of Famer, one of the great goaltenders of the game, somebody I grew up watching as a kid. And people always ask me, what are the coolest people you've ever interviewed? And it's not necessarily the people you would think it is. It's always the people I grew up watching. That's always kind of wild for me. And as somebody who's 45 years old, Grant Fuhr fits right in that window of guys that I grew up watching. And now, as heartbreaking as it is, because I grew up in Connecticut, so I was a Hartford Whalers fan. So it always just destroys me when I have to talk about hockey, because my hockey fandom died when the Whalers left Hartford and fled to Carolina. Thank you, Peter Carmanos. So I'm thrilled to welcome this man to the show. Grant Fuhr joins us on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio, on the SportsMap Radio app. He's doing great work on the Coachella Valley Firebirds home TV broadcasts, and he joins us on the show tonight. First of all, Grant, thank you for coming on. It's got to be nice to have some games to call in your new arena there as well.
It is. I mean, it's kind of nice to have hockey here in the Valley. So we've been starved for something to do at night here, so it's nice to have a little hockey.
It is crazy, though. Let's be honest. The idea of hockey in a place where it gets to 120 degrees during the summer is kind of nuts. Like, there's no way in your wildest imagination. I think you've been out here for a while, right? You've been in the Valley for a bit. There's no way you could have imagined this ever would happen one day.
No, I mean, at one point we didn't think Wayne would ever end up in L.A. either. So Wayne got to L.A., you got hockey in Florida, you got hockey in Texas, so hence, here we are in the Coachella Valley.
Yeah, no, it is wild. And this team, by the way, and I got a lot I want to talk to you about, but this team, which is the Kraken's AHL affiliate, has been really good this year, and that has to bode well, you would think, for the Kraken and what's coming down the pike for them.
No, they've been really good this year, especially starting, I think we started, 22 in a row on the road, and came out of that, I think, second or third in the conference, and now they're battling for first. So it says a lot about the character of the guys they brought in.
The AHL has a zillion teams, it feels like, from the East Coast all the way out to the West Coast. Where I'm from originally in Connecticut, obviously they had the Hartford Wolfpack, the Bridgeport Islanders, which used to be the Sound Tigers. I mean, there's a lot of hockey up that way. Talk a little bit about the AHL. As somebody who played in the NHL, you basically look at the AHL as the AAA, baseball sort of equivalent of what the NHL is. Try to describe for people who may not have been exposed, people that are listening to us in major cities where they may not have AHL hockey. Try to give them a sense for the caliber of play versus what you see in the NHL and the biggest differences you might see.
Well, I think a lot of what you're going to see is your future stars. I mean, guys that maybe aren't quite ready to step up and play in the National Hockey League yet, but are too good to play junior. I mean, we just had Shane Wright down here for a while, where he's in that boat where he's an 18-year-old that might be too good for junior, but not quite good enough for the NHL. So he was able to play a few games here and actually looked like he fit in really well. So you're going to see some really good hockey, and it's competitive because everybody wants to play in the National Hockey League. So the guys don't take that night off here or there.
The inevitable question I always have to ask from, when you left the game, I think you stopped playing about 20 years ago, to where the game is now, the biggest difference in the style of play that you notice is?
I think the biggest difference is the guys are more skilled overall. I think first and foremost. Now, obviously, everybody's bigger, faster. They train better now than we did. They all eat better than we did, undoubtedly. It's just the evolution of the athlete, I think, is the biggest difference.
One of the things that always troubles me about hockey in sort of analyzing the way the sport is marketed to people and all of that is sometimes I get the feeling that, we were just talking about this a couple weeks ago. I said a baseball reliever makes more than 90% of the NHL players do. You know, even your big, and I'm talking your biggest stars. So when I look at the compensation that guys make for, you know, Major League Baseball or obviously the NBA and the NFL and things like that, and then I look at, you know, you're talking about the skill level of these guys, and I watch the NHL, and the skill level is off the charts. I'm trying to figure out why the salaries don't feel like they're commensurate with what other leagues are paying their big stars. And is there anything that could tip that in the direction of the players ultimately?
I think the biggest thing is TV revenue. I mean, I think first and foremost, you have to have TV revenue to generate that kind of money. I mean, hockey's limited to between 18 and 20,000 seats, whereas you get a baseball stadium, a football stadium, you've got 60, 70,000 seats. So that's a lot more bodies in there that are paying a lot more for beer and enjoyment. So we're kind of limited when it comes to people we're out in front of. So you have to have that bigger TV deal to generate more revenue.
Yeah, you certainly do. And, you know, sometimes I feel like just in terms of the marketing of the game, and this isn't me just trying to sit there and have a bang on the league session. It's more trying to figure out solutions to make hockey more palatable and popular around the country. Because, we always talk about the idea of hockey being a regional sport, which, by the way, I think baseball has become too. I think it's largely a regional game when you look at TV ratings and what it does in local markets versus the ratings it gets nationally. It feels like both of them are regional sports, yet one is obviously paying their players a lot more. From a marketing standpoint, is there something that, as somebody who's been around the league as a player and a coach, that you'd like to see the league do better in terms of marketing its stars and its good teams?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to market your stars, but the biggest thing is you got to get people in the building. I mean, once people see hockey live, they become fans. And that's the biggest thing that I see is like we're in a market here where people aren't used to seeing hockey. So you may see a game here or there on TV, which doesn't do it the justice that it should. I mean, the best way to describe hockey is you need to see it live. You get to realize how fast it really is, how big the guys really are, and you become a huge fan of the game just by getting them in to see it that once or twice. They'll want to keep coming. And that's how the game grows.
You know, it's so true. I've said there are two sports, frankly three, but two sports in particular that I think don't do justice to it. One is soccer, which I can't stand to watch on television. But in person, when you could see the entire pitch and see what's going on, it's great to watch. And I think hockey is the other. I think, watching it on TV, it almost feels like you're watching a video game sometimes. Whereas when you're there in person and seeing these guys move up and down the ice, doing what they do on skates, that sort of agility is really second to none. As a guy that coached in the league, and sort of can analyze it both as a player and a coach, if you had it to do again as a coach in the league, what would you do differently?
Being as I looked after goalies, not a whole lot. I mean, our whole deal is you got to stop the puck. But I grew up in an offensive system. I love offensive hockey. I like to see aggressive hockey. So I think as a coach, that's the style of play I like to see. I mean, I like what Coachella's done where they're an aggressive team. And they can play the rough game. They can play the finesse game. They can play that hard grinding game. And I like that kind of hockey where it's always fast and up-tempo.
Grant Fuhr, Pro Hockey Hall of Famer, is joining us on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio, doing great work on the Coachella Valley Firebirds AHL TV broadcast, somebody who's been around the game for a long time. What's it like for you to see Wayne Gretzky doing TV now?
You know what? It's always fun to watch. I mean, we obviously go back a long ways, so the fact that he's doing TV, I've started to fiddle around with it a little bit. To think that would have ever got to that point we'd have never seen that back in the day, but now it seems okay.
Would you like to do it on the national level? Would you like to, if TNT or ESPN called you up, would you like to go and do it on that level?
You know what? I've had fun with it so far, so you never know. I mean, I never close doors. That's the one thing. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy being around the game, and I still love the game.
When you were done coaching, did you feel like you got it out of your system, or did you feel like if the opportunity ever presented itself again, it's something you would do?
You know what? When I got out of coaching, I wanted to take a couple of years off just to basically clear my head a little bit. I mean, I'd been in the game since I was 4 years old, so it was time for a little break to just try something else, and I get to fiddle around and play a little bit of golf and that sort of thing. But I always knew at some point I'd go back to hockey just because it's in my blood and it's something that I love doing and it's something I love being around.
If I gave you one player that you get to watch today, I'm going to put you on the spot with this one. If you got if you get one game to watch, one team, one player, who's the guy that you're tuning in to watch right now?
Right now, I'd be watching Connor McDavid. And every night, there's something that's going to be highlight reel that he's going to do. So I have no issues with that one. That's an easy one player.
Yeah, Connor McDavid. Is there a particular team?
I'm still an Oiler fan, but again, I've become a fan of Seattle now. So, but no, I enjoy hockey in general. I like watching all the different teams. I like seeing the different styles, seeing how different teams play. So I'm still a student of the game.
What do you make of the way Seattle has built this organization, as somebody now that's working sort of on the inside and able to see the inner workings of this? And obviously they're off to a nice start this year. Talk to me a little bit about this Seattle franchise. And, we've seen that expansion teams could have success fast. It used to be it took years to become good as an expansion team. Las Vegas proved, several years back, you can build it quickly. What's allowing Seattle to do that?
Well, I think what they've done is they built for the long term. I mean, last year there were some growing pains, which everybody saw, but at the same time, there were some positives. And with the people they've got there and players they've brought in, that sort of thing, it's allowed them to have some success this year. And each year, I think, is going to steadily build and get better and better. And they're going to have some young guys that are going to be able to step in and carry that forward. So you're going to have a good team for years to come.
Yeah, you certainly are. All right, before I let you go, I got to get you out with this one. This is going to be asking you to tap into your memory a little bit. When you think back to ever having to go and play a game at the then Hartford Civic Center, which was a mall at the time, and play against the Whalers, give me something. Give me a memory. Give me something about having to go to Hartford to play against the Whalers.
It could be the goal song. We heard that way too often. I think we lost 11-0 there one day, so we got to hear it a lot. So that left a lasting scar.
I actually do have one more question. I was just thinking about this today, and I wanted to make sure I asked you about this because we've been talking about this DeMar Hamlin story, which I'm sure you've heard about, this poor kid from the Buffalo Bills who got hurt last night. You've been around hockey a long time. You've seen a lot of things. Is there anything you can harken back to in your career when you saw DeMar Hamlin in this position, on the field last night? Is there anything that kind of hit you in terms of something you may have seen as a player, whether high school, collegiate, professional ranks, that sort of reminded you of what you saw last night?
St. Louis. When I was in St. Louis, we went through a scary situation like that where Chris Pronger got hit in the left side of his chest with a puck and did the same thing, kind of got up and then dropped. So, and had a cardiac issue. So it brought back some memories that weren't good memories, and you just hope the best for him and his family.
Yeah, and something, I was talking to a doctor last night about that, Grant, and he was saying this is typically an injury you would see with baseball, and it's an issue you'd see with hockey because of the nature of the puck in the baseball and where it could hit you in the chest. It's not something you would typically see in football. So that's why I was kind of interested to hear you mention that, because it seems like that's where you see this injury more. And I'm sure it's happened more than just to Pronger.
I'm guessing it has, but that's the only time I saw it live and in person. And it's a scary thing to see.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Well, listen, Grant Fuhr, congratulations on the role with the Firebirds. Continued success to them all season long, the affiliate for the Seattle Kraken. Let's get out on the golf course soon. You're going to have to take some money from me.
I look forward to it.
Grant Fuhr, appreciate the time. Have yourself a great night. We'll come back and wrap up the hour next. Oy vey. Yeah, you can still post it. He's a Hockey Hall of Famer. Still post it. See, and I can make it easier for you if you really want to do stuff with video editing, because like that, these interviews I do, I actually, even though the whole entire show records on YouTube or Twitch or all those things, I actually take interviews and record the interview separately on my computer. So I could always put those in an AirDrive, in my Google Drive or whatever, and just give you a link, and you could go get it if it's easier. Rather than having to go through the whole show, you know what I mean? It's always off by a half. Yes. Yep, you're smart. That's what I've had to do. Because I dabble with video editing too. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And I've never been able to figure out why the audio is. See, it says sync offset 500 milliseconds. I wonder if I set that to a different number. It's so interesting. Test 1 2. Test. It's so weird. We'll play with it. We continue on this Tuesday, wrapping up hour number 1 of the show. Not any surprise, the Bills and Bengals game will not resume this week. We knew that as soon as Buffalo was flying back. I mean, if they didn't play the game today, they weren't playing it. I mean, it's pretty much as simple as that. There is so much, I hate, and it's terrible what happened to Damar Hamlin, because I had a whole show, kind of planned for last night, and there's so much NFL news to get to, but it just feels like everything is overshadowed by this Damar Hamlin injury. And I think the hardest part of it, and you guys are welcome to agree or disagree, 1-800-224-2004 or on Twitter at the back page. And we're having issues with the phone, so you might get through, you might not. But one of the things that's hardest for me in sort of looking at this whole situation is it's just a waiting game. We have nothing to report. You just like to hear something. And the fact that you're not really getting any news tends to make me believe there really hasn't been any change in his condition. And that's tough. I mean, that's really tough. I think all of us are just sitting here on the edge of our seats, hoping to get some sort of news, no matter what it may be. Obviously hoping for the best, but understanding that the worst is possible. So it's a tough situation, and we're all kind of going through it together. Not to the degree the players or family are, but it's something we're all sort of dealing with right now. We got another hour of the cash in right around the corner. More NFL news in the next hour, including more on the Damar Hamlin injury as we continue in the cash in on SportsMap Radio. I'll be right back. Second hour of the show on this Tuesday, SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Flanked by producer, engineer, extraordinaire John Belmer tonight. And tomorrow. Get you for 2 nights? My God, it must be a scheduling error. I agree. A lot of NFL to talk about in this hour. I was just talking about it with Belmer. I don't know. Did we talk about it on the air or did we talk about it off the air? Giannis Antetokounmpo at 55 tonight. Yawn. Yeah. There's a show that goes on inside the show that you guys hear, and then the rest of the show happens off the air, and that's why we have the Twitch feed, twitch.tv, Jason Page 77. Although you can't hear what Belmer is saying because I haven't figured out how to get the system wired in my home so that you could actually hear what Belmer is saying. But, you know, it's interesting. Giannis goes off for 55 tonight, and I don't even bat an eye at it because everybody's just putting up these video game numbers in the NBA this year. When LeBron James, who I love, has back-to-back 40-point games in his 20th season in the league, something's amiss. Something's not right. It's just a different style of basketball, and you have to take all these numbers with a grain of salt. It is akin, and I said this to Kurt Heelan last week on the show, our NBA guy from NBCSports.com. It is akin to the baseball steroid era, where you just had, you know, Brady Anderson hitting 50 home runs. I mean, and everybody looked away. Yeah, Brady Anderson's got 50 home runs this year. And you go, what? Luis Gonzalez has 50. Yeah, right. Come on. And you knew something wasn't right. You couldn't put your finger on it. You weren't allowed to really say it, but you knew something wasn't right. And that's what you got going on right now in the NBA, where you've got, you know, everybody and their mother. When Pascal Siakam's putting up 50 burgers at Madison Square Garden against the Knicks, you're like, okay, we get it. Scoring's up. Giannis tonight, 55 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals. He was a plus 25, by the way. 20 of 33 from the field, 15 of 16 from the line. That's good for him. Let's do some NFL in this hour. Matt Verderame about 30 minutes from now from Fansided, and a whole lot more on the Cash In at SportsMap Radio. Da, 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 da. Why? Jittery? Yeah. My husband sometimes makes that mistake because he's a big coffee nut. And it screws them all up. Yeah. Yeah, I did. Yeah, no, we had a good time for Christmas and New Year's. It's just so much running around. You know. My biggest mistake was not taking a week. I should have taken the week off between Christmas and New Year's, and I'm regretting that right now because I really needed it. I'm not taking any time. No, I won't take any time off until after the Super Bowl now. It's a blackout period as far as I'm concerned. For syndicated shows, you really shouldn't be off. Especially a new one like mine. Of course. The sports god. I never understood how that guy was ever given a platform on the air. All right, a lot of NFL news to get to, even beyond the Damar Hamlin story. And again, if there's any updates during the time that we're on the air tonight, we'll obviously bring those to you. I wouldn't anticipate much. The little bits and pieces we're getting right now are essentially from the family, putting things out there, giving us little glimpses into what's going on. And you know what? That's their prerogative. I mean, none of us have a right to ask for information or anything like that. They proffer what they proffer, and we sort of go from there. You know, it all started last night with the marketing director for Damar Hamlin basically coming out and saying, well, he's his vitals are back to normal, but he's on a breathing tube. And then people were like, oh, is that a breathing tube or is that a ventilator? What does that mean? And then we got word today it's a ventilator, which is, that's a tough situation. That's a difficult situation when you're talking about a ventilator, because it means he cannot breathe on his own. He is sedated, and we'll just have to wait and see now what takes place. Everybody's hoping for the best. This is obviously a strong, athletic young man, and you hope that in these instances, that's what can carry the day when you talk about athletes that find themselves in this situation, is the conditioning that they're in is enough to bring them through this sort of situation. So we'll wait and see. And again, nothing from the league in terms of what they plan to do with the game. And right now, I don't really care one way or another. I don't think there's any immediate pressure in this night to figure that out. But they're gonna obviously sort through it, and they're gonna do whatever it is that they do. Like I said, I don't trust the NFL. I've said all along, the NFL to me is a mafia. It is. And every team is basically a different crime boss. It's a different crime syndicate, so to speak. It's a mob family. It's what it is. And you know what? If guys around the league want to get mad at me for saying that, knock yourselves out. I don't care. You got nothing on me. You know what I mean? I can say it because I don't have to worry about, going to work for any of these ESPNs or Fox Sports anymore. And I've worked for ESPN before, so I don't really care. There's cover-ups, and there's the way these leagues go about handling these situations. And a lot of times they treat the fans as if they're a bunch of idiots. Yeah. I find it hard to believe that the NFL would tell the teams they have 5 minutes to warm up and then get back out on the field after a guy just nearly died in front of them on a football field. Yeah, that would shock me. Honestly, say it out loud. Would it shock you if the league did that? Of course not. You know better. But they're going to still try to pull the wool over your eyes, and that's what they do. There is a lot of other NFL news going on, though, and I got to be honest. It's become sort of my pet topic that I talk about on the show outside of player safety and the Tua Tagovailoa stuff. The one thing I find myself fascinated with is this situation in Carolina with the Panthers. And I know people are going to say, well, why do you care about that? There's so many other stories around the NFL, and you're worried about the Panthers who aren't even going to make the playoffs this year. I think about it a lot because of the fact of the Rooney Rule. and what it was designed to do. And Steve Wilkes was basically given the interim coaching job after Matt Rule was canned, a year into this big deal that he got to become the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. And Steve Wilkes came in, and he's got the team. I think they were 1-3 or 1-4 when he took over. He's got the team one game under 500 during the time that he's been there as the head coach. And now we're in a situation where the Panthers owner, David Tepper, is reportedly talking to Jim Harbaugh, the head coach at Michigan, about potentially taking the job. By the way, we haven't even talked about the college football playoff. I'll try to get into it a bit in the next hour. Like I said, we're a little backlogged with topics because of the fact that last night, and rightly so, we spent the entire show talking about Damar Hamlin. So Jim Harbaugh, the Michigan head coach, who I think a lot of us thought there was a chance that if the right opportunity came along, would book it back to the NFL. He's done just about everything he could at Michigan, short of winning a national championship or a college football playoff championship, which isn't necessarily that unusual because he's come up short everywhere he's been. Again, not being mean, being factual. Came up short with the 49ers. Would like you to believe, and he behaves like a guy that's won multiple Super Bowls. The fact is he's won nothing. Zero, zilch, nada. And now at Michigan. You got so close. You're the favorite against TCU, and you couldn't get the job done again. So now he's going to go back to the NFL, and he's going to get all this money to go and fix a team. And look, only one team wins a Super Bowl every year. So it's not saying that anybody is a failure if they don't win a Super Bowl. There's been a lot of great head coaches that never win Super Bowls. I mean, how long did it take for Andy Reid to win his first? I mean, sometimes it just doesn't happen. Sometimes you run into the wrong teams. Sometimes you play in the wrong era or coach in the wrong era where there's a lot of great head coaches and a lot of great teams. And there's so much talent in this league and so much stardom in this league that some guys just don't win it. But he's gotten opportunities. Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick, national championship, college football playoff now with Michigan. I mean, we've seen Jim Harbaugh get teams to the doorstep and not be able to knock the door down. John Calipari was like that forever until he finally got one. And now he can basically do whatever he wants. It doesn't really matter because he got that championship. And once you get that championship, you know what? Guys, are sort of grandfathered in at that point. Unless you're Doug Peterson with the Eagles, and then you get let go and you wind up going to coach in Jacksonville, which, by the way, he's done a great job with. But to me, if Steve Wilkes is not the next head coach of the Carolina Panthers, then the Rooney Rule is just a complete failure. It's a joke. It's a laughingstock, and it needs to be revamped. It needs to go, and the league has to have its feet held to the fire in terms of how it handles minority coaching hires. Because if Steve Wilkes with this team has not earned the head coaching job at Carolina, then I don't know what you do. Go and look at the talent level. And I had people fight back against me on Twitter and say, no, the defense couldn't stop Mike Evans. And so Mike Evans is a Hall of Fame wide receiver. Mike Evans is a guy that's probably going to wind up in the Hall of Fame one day. And you're going to tell me that Steve Wilkes shouldn't get the Carolina Panthers coaching job because Mike Evans went off and had a game against him? Are you kidding me? Steve Wilkes took a team that was left for dead by ownership with guys named Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and P.J. Walker as the starting quarterbacks. And he got them to week 17 and their destiny in their own hands. I mean, and frankly, within a quarter of being able to go to the postseason with a win this week. And they lost to arguably the greatest quarterback, not arguably, the greatest quarterback, if not the greatest player in the history of the NFL. The fact that he hasn't already been given a full-time contract to be the permanent head coach of that team is such a black eye on this league. And it's something you don't hear anybody say or anybody talk about. Why? What does he have to do? What more can he do? What, he's got to beat the Saints this week so that his record is 500? So that he goes, 6-6, I think, as head coach or something like that. That's what he has to do in order to... it's mind-blowing that that's what Steve Wilkes has to do in order to get this job. Now, he's considered, and all the reporting on this, and we'll talk about it with Matt Verderame coming up in 19 minutes when we get into our broader NFL conversation. He's considered to be a candidate and a strong candidate. But let's be honest. If Jim Harbaugh says, I want this job in Carolina, which, by the way, of all the potential openings, why do you want that job? There's a lot of building to do there. If you're leaving Michigan and a program that has a great young quarterback in McCarthy, if you're him, it better be a really mint gig. Guys like Jim Harbaugh, who, again, whether you like him or not, and I'm not a fan of his, I'm particularly not a big fan of his character. I'm not a fan of a guy that basically took Alex Smith when Alex Smith was playing amazing football in San Francisco for the Niners. Alex Smith lost his job after he sustained a concussion. And Jim Harbaugh installed Colin Kaepernick as the starting quarterback. Now, they went to the Super Bowl, don't get me wrong. But the fact that he basically took Alex Smith, who everybody was trying to figure out or find a reason to get rid of anyway at that time, and got rid of him for Colin Kaepernick, who, again, wound up being a really good quarterback in the league for the short time he was there and was within, a throw away from winning a Super Bowl. The fact that he did that to Alex Smith, I'll never be able to forgive him for. Because to me, that's about character. Character as a head coach. Instead of win at all costs, he threw Alex Smith under the bus and rolled it over him a few times. And Smith went on to still have a good career. He played in Kansas City and then, obviously had the catastrophic injury there and then everything else that took place. Or maybe he had that injury in Washington, but you know what I mean? He still had a solid career after that. But I always thought that what he did to Alex Smith in that moment was something that, for me, always sort of turned me against him. Plus, he was always snide towards the media. Always had an axe to grind with the media, like we were the bad guys. So I'm not a Jim Harbaugh guy. You might be. I'm not. But if he tells David Tepper, I want this job, David Tepper is going to hire him. Rooney Rule be damned. And if he does, the NFL will have a huge you-know-what storm on its hands. Because he's earned that job. There's simply no getting around it. He has earned that job. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. On Twitter, at The Back Page. Hit me up there on Twitter, at The Back Page. By the way, if you're wondering, we're not doing any live betting tonight. We didn't do any last night out of respect for Damar Hamlin, because to me, that it's just sort of trivial. And I know this show has a big gambling component to it. And we'll get back into it in due course. Maybe tomorrow night we'll do it. When I feel like doing it, we'll do it. Simple as that. Interesting note that I want to get to on the other side, though. Donovan Mitchell scored 71 points last night. And again, not something a lot of people obviously were in the mood to talk about, given what transpired last night with Damar Hamlin. But an interesting story emerges today following Mitchell and that 71-point effort. I'll tell you what it is when we come back on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Yeah. All right. Yeah, it's not. I mean, I've done shows without calls forever, so it doesn't really bother me. Yeah, I know. The next thing I plan to actually add to this show, once I've not even so much have budget, I just have to figure out how to do it, is I'm actually going to add a text line to it. Yeah. Oh, that was a career high for Giannis tonight. I didn't realize that. 55. Yeah. Well, I mean, 55 is a lot of points. No. Yeah. So far this year in the NBA, there have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 50-point games. Yep. Games. 21, 22. Let's see how many were there last year. I gotta look. Last year there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Oh, here we go. Last year, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Last year there were 14 all year. Key? Behind the bed on the headboard. So last year in the NBA, there were 14 games of 50 points or more, individual performances. This year, there's been 14 already. We're not even halfway through the season. It's just, it's just silly. Like I said, you got to look at it, sort of with a tilted head when you talk about what's going on in the league this year. And the numbers are just through the roof. Giannis tonight, the 55 points for Giannis against the Wizards. In a victory, that was a career high for him. I forgot to throw that in. It's his first 50-point game this year. By the way, Luka Doncic now has 3 50-point games this year, and they all came within 8 days of each other. 50 against Houston, 60 against the Knicks, and 51 against the Spurs. It's just off the charts silly. Even Klay Thompson has a 54-point game just a couple of days ago. Which, again, and you know how Klay has played this year. So you know that's, you got to kind of go, wow. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. We'll be joined coming up in about 10 minutes by Matt Verderame, who does a great job with Fansided on the NFL, and get some thoughts with him on obviously this Damar Hamlin story and what he's hearing about what the league may do with this game that has been suspended, with the score 7-3 in the first quarter. So we'll obviously get some thoughts with him on that and a whole bunch of other things going on around the NFL. So I mentioned Donovan Mitchell, 71 points last night in an overtime game. Well, apparently the NBA, that sort of that game was kind of flagged. It's like in baseball when somebody has a 3-home run game and you're kind of like, who hit 3 home runs? Oh, we got to go drug test him. Yep, Donovan Mitchell tweeting out this morning. Actually, Robin Lopez tweeted out this morning. I'm about to get it out of the way and point out that Donovan Mitchell and Robin Lopez combined for 72 tonight. Hashtag historic game. Robin Lopez making fun of himself because he had 1 point when Donovan Mitchell had 71 last night. Donovan Mitchell, responding to that tweet, said, and just like that, we are drug tested this morning. So there you go. Mitchell drug tested after he goes off for 71 points last night. But tell me again how PED testing is random. Random testing. They just happened to test Donovan Mitchell after he scores 71 last night. You can't make it up. You really can't. 145-134 was the score in overtime last night against the Bulls, with Mitchell putting up that 71-point effort. Most points scored in an NBA game since Kobe Bryant put up 81 against Toronto in January of 2006. But let's not pretend the drug testing is random. Again, people, you're smart enough to know what you see. Your first instinct tends to be correct. I was watching poker the other day. There's an old saying in poker, think long, think wrong. Meaning, if you're forced to a decision, usually your first instinct is the one you go with. Whereas if you think about it too long, you're going to tend to overthink it, overanalyze it, and probably make the wrong decision. And that's what we're talking about here. If you think Donovan Mitchell was randomly drug tested today, come on. You're smarter. You're smarter than that. Give yourself more credit. You're smarter than that. Zion Williamson, we've all been waiting all year for this. We've all been worried about what would potentially happen. What would happen to the Pelicans if Zion Williamson went down with an injury. They've been so good this season. Well, it happened. Zion Williamson down for at least the next 3 weeks, with the Pelicans having the third best record in the Western Conference. They're just a half game or one game behind the Nuggets for the top spot in the Western Conference, and what is a wide open Western Conference this year. Frankly, both conferences, nobody's running away with it. The difference between the 1 seed in the West in the NBA right now and the 6 seed is 5 losses. The difference in the NBA between the 1st seed and the 6th seed is 5 losses. Nobody's running away in either conference right now. And that speaks volumes to the amount of parity you have in this league. I mean, in the Eastern Conference right now, you've got 12 of the 15 teams that are within striking distance. You can even go one further and count the Magic at 13 and 24 that are within, 2 games of the 10th spot in the Eastern Conference. And in the West, you can broaden that out and say 13 of the 15 teams in the Western Conference are in a position to make it into the playing game. So there's a whole bunch of possibilities in the second half of the season, which is fast approaching. We're almost at the halfway point in terms of number of games played of this NBA season. But the loss of Zion, see how the Pelicans navigate it, and will a 3-week hamstring strain, wind up being a month or 6 weeks? We've seen him babied and coddled throughout his entire career when it comes to potential injuries. How are they going to treat this? Knowing how valuable he is to this team and knowing how important seeding is in the Western Conference when you start talking about, where the Pelicans could potentially go. So we'll have to wait and see, but keep an eye on that injury and what it means for the Pelicans now for the next 3 weeks. Again, they're not even going to reevaluate him for 3 weeks, which means you're talking at least a month. So we're not going to see him till after the All-Star break, essentially, is what you're looking at. And Zion Williamson's played in 29 of 37 games this year for New Orleans. And now, yet again, you're looking at a situation where he's going to be out a while. And I'll tell you another thing this impacts. I said I wasn't going to do any sports betting stuff tonight, but I guess I lied. Another thing this impacts is what happens with him potentially for comeback player of the year. And I'll guarantee you there's a lot of people that had money on Zion Williamson potentially for comeback player of the year award. And those odds probably took a nosedive now, for this season. Most improved player, let's see here. Was Zion in there? Yeah, see, his odds have dropped to plus 10,000 for most improved. I know there's a comeback player of the year, but I don't see any betting odds on it. But we'll see what happens. That obviously is a big blow for the Pelicans. All right, let's do some NFL conversation. We'll talk about all of it, including the Damar Hamlin hospitalization and everything that took place last night. We'll be joined by Matt Verderame, who I love talking to. Does a terrific job on the NFL for Fansided, one of our national beat guys we love to get on. Matt Verderame joins the cash-in. Coming up in a couple of minutes on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Okie dokie. Thanks for being with us. SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app. God, I look terrible tonight on camera. I should just turn off the camera and put up like a green screen or something. Put up a backdrop of something. I look awful tonight. Belmer, help me out, man. God, I look terrible. Just there really is no help. I look awful tonight. I look like I went to bed at 3:30 in the morning out here on the West Coast, and it's because I did. Because I got called to do again, I'm only called by cable TV networks when like disaster strikes, unfortunately. So had to do an appearance last night at 1 a.m. on Fox News. Remember, I'm on the West Coast, so it's 4 a.m. Eastern, which is the start of their morning programming. Who's watching TV at 4 a.m. on the East Coast, I don't know. And then I was on at 5 a.m. Eastern on CNN. So by the time I went to bed, then I had to get up at 8 o'clock this morning because my dog was sitting there yakking at me that he wanted to go out. So I just look like death today. I slept all day. Can I even make a stronger confession? You ready for this one, Belmer? It is 8:41 p.m. on the West Coast. I have not showered today. Haven't showered. Yep, I'm owning it. Have not showered, and I look like it. I got a giant pimple on the side of my head. Who gets pimples when they're 45? Oh, man, it's awful. Oh, thank God for makeup. Let's bring in Matt Verderame, NFL reporter over at Fansided. I don't know how he's going to follow that, but he joins us on the show tonight on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio, on the SportsMap Radio app. I don't know why I wasted so much time talking about my skin looking terrible, because I got a lot I want to talk to you about tonight on the show. Start with, I guess, what was your reaction to what you saw last night and everything that's happened since? I'm just going to wind you up and say go.
Yeah, look, I think, like everybody in this business, I was sitting there watching the game, excited for the game, and started off really like you'd expect it to. The offense is going up and down the field, and all of a sudden, tragedy strikes with Damar Hamlin. And, I think probably I would assume, like most people watching the game in real time, I didn't see him collapse. I just, after the play, saw him on the ground, and I didn't think anything of it other than, okay, sure, it'll be tended to. And then when they came back from break, they replayed it. To be honest, my initial thought was I thought he had a heart attack, because I didn't think it was a concussion. It obviously was not anything, like a knee or any. He just went horrifyingly lifeless. But I am no doctor. My wife, who does it, her doctor, who was a medical professional, sitting there next to me, and she immediately went to what a lot of people now believe it to be, which was the skip of the heart cycle, and so it's just terrifying. Sitting there watching that whole thing unfold, and the CPR. I think you watch the players and their reaction, you're realizing how incredibly serious it is. I thought in the end, the NFL made the only decision that there was, and of course the right one, which is to delay the game and to suspend it indefinitely. And now, look, you pray for Damar Hamlin and his family and teammates and friends that he's going to be okay. Hopefully he walks out of that hospital here in a day or two. And as far as the game and where it goes, I think from a football perspective, which is obviously in the back seat, that I think is an open-ended question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know that anybody knows the answer to that.
Can't be open for too long, though. I mean, it's not like it's week 5 and you could find some spot to squeeze it in with bye weeks and all that. I mean, I hate to. I'm not insensitive. I spent 3 hours talking about Damar Hamlin last night and not talking about how they replay this game. I'm not insensitive towards that as we sit here and await news on his fate, and hopefully it's for the best. But I mean, I don't know how the league fixes this. Short of pushing back the postseason by a week, which they do have the opportunity to do because you have the 2 weeks between the conference championship and the Super Bowl. You do have the possibility of just pushing back the start of the postseason by a week. Are you hearing anything in that regard?
I'm not. And I'm not hearing anything in any regard because I really don't think they've made any kind of determination even internally. I think everything's on the table. I will say this, Jason. I think they're going to have to figure it out before games kick off this weekend. I think they have to have the plan in place. And I think for competitive, balance, is that's the right word?
Yeah.
Competitive sake, you've got to know
what you're playing for. You have to know what you're playing for.
Right, exactly. Because if they're not going to play, let's just say they came out tomorrow and said, look, that game is going to be a no contest, or it's going to be a tie, which essentially is the same thing for the standings. Then the Bengals have won the AFC North. They don't have to play. Now, they could say, well, we're going to play for some seeding, although I believe in that case, I believe they'd be locked into the 3. So if you're the Bengals, you wouldn't play. You would just take a bye week. If you are Buffalo, you would be looking at, if the Chiefs win Saturday, you're locked into the 2 seed. Now, that's where this becomes really difficult. From a football standpoint, I feel like right now you got to put in that qualifier. If you're the Bills, looking at the standings, you fought all year to be the number one seed. Now all of a sudden, if they say, look, it's a tie, you're hoping that Jarrett Stidham beats the Chiefs, or because you didn't get to finish that game in Cincinnati, you're now a 2 seed. Now, look, maybe at this point, nobody in Buffalo cares based on what's going on with their friend and their teammate. I don't know that. That's not my place. I think if you're the NFL, if you can, and if the teams want to, I think you've got to try to get that game in. I just don't know that they're going to be willing to push everything a week, because while they could, the NFL loves its money, and the NFL certainly loves the Super Bowl, and they're going to want 2 weeks worth of build-up. So would they push everything? I don't know, but I think it's certainly on the table right now based off of everything going on.
Matt Verderame, our guest NFL reporter over at Fansided. What do you make of and I don't know how strongly you feel about this, but what do you make of the reporting in terms of what happened last night with the league? Basically, you have Joe Buck on TV saying, all right, they've got 15 minutes to warm up. He says he got that information from John Perry, who's a former NFL official, who's there on site and is communicating with the league. So, Joe Buck isn't just saying that willy-nilly. Then you get Troy Vincent after the game, who's a former NFL player, who's now the EVP of league operations, coming out and saying, no, that never happened. What do you make of the fact that, yet again with this league, it isn't even about the mistake of saying, hey, we're going to get them back out there and try to restart the game, after 5-minute warm-up. I think in the fog of the chaos of this situation, people would be far more understanding if the league just came out and said, yeah, you know what, we screwed it up, rather than basically lie bold-faced to us, unless you suddenly believe that Joe Buck went rogue.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're asking me which side of the story I'm more inclined to believe Joe Buck. He's been a professional for 30 years at this and knows what he's doing. And he stood by it today. I mean, it wasn't like he said, well, maybe we got bad information. He was like, no, that's exactly what happened. The NFL, if I've learned anything covering this sport and watching this sport since I was a kid, the NFL has a show must go on mentality. I mean, they don't stop for weather. If there's lightning, okay, they'll stop for a minute, then they'll start the second they can. I remember in 2012 when Chiefs linebacker Devon Belcher killed his girlfriend and mother of their child, and then drove to Arrowhead Stadium and committed suicide in front of some Chiefs employees in the parking lot. The Chiefs played the next day, but they didn't think about the line. They went right out there and played that game. So, the NFL has a history. When JFK was assassinated in 63, they played that weekend. The AFL did not. The NFL did. It is rare that the NFL halts action for anything. Now, it's also, thank God, exceedingly rare to have what happened last night take place. And so I think the NFL, frankly, they can say whatever they want. I think they were caught completely by surprise. How could you not be? I think they were unprepared. And I think there was a sense of, okay, look, we're going to give everybody a little bit of time. And I think the people in the stadium, the people on the sidelines, dealing with the actual emotion of it, seeing the CPR being given, everything else, I think those people, led by Sean McDermott and Zach Taylor, said, no, we're not doing this. We're not playing this game. And the NFL can deal with it. And then I think the only decision that could be made was made, which was, we're going to suspend the game indefinitely. But the NFL, look, nobody cares at this point about anything other than Damar Hamlin. Like, there's no reason to turn this into a cover-up. Just look, it is what it is. You made a mistake, own it, move on, and make it better for hopefully a time that we never have to deal with, but be prepared better next time.
Talking with Matt Verderame, NFL reporter over at Fansided, giving us some time here on the cash-in on SportsMap Radio. I just talked about it a few minutes ago. If Steve Wilkes does not get this Panthers job and it winds up going to a Harbaugh or one of these other guys, this is a major problem for the league. I mean, what more could this guy have done with this team that was left for dead, who got rid of its best star, who had P.J. Walker, Sam Darnold, and Baker Mayfield starting games this year? I don't know what more he could do to be installed as the full-time head coach. I have to imagine the league is cringing at the possibility that Steve Wilkes gets passed over for this job.
100%. Now, look, Steve Wilkes, you'll get the people that say, hey, you already had a head coaching job, you was one and done. Nobody's walked into a worse situation in the world than Steve Wilkes walked into in Arizona when he had that job. 1 year, Josh Rosen, good luck. Vince Lombardi wasn't going 500 with that team. Okay, like that. So Steve Wilkes does not deserve to have that held against him. To me, what stands out, you know what? That team, I think, said it perfectly. Left for dead. They were selling off parts, and Wilkes got them to buy in and play really hard all the way through. I mean, they ended up not winning the division, but they came damn close to doing it. And he did it with no quarterback. Now you're going to have a high pick. I think losing the division is the best thing for him, frankly, because now you're going to have a really high draft pick. Maybe you go get a Bryce Young or a C.J. Stroud or a Levis. I think for Carolina, you found a man who can lead the team. I'm with you. Like, I think, and obviously everybody knows the league has a problem with diversity in hiring. I mean, that is clear as day. Steve Wilkes, forget his color. He deserves his job, period. I don't care what color it is, but yes, because of the diversity issue in the NFL at the head coaching position, yes, I think the NFL certainly would like to see Wilkes get that job. I think he should get that job. As you said, I don't know what else he could have done. I felt like he performed a miracle just to have Carolina competitive this week.
Packers get a win this weekend. They make the postseason. Your thoughts on this game coming up this weekend against Detroit? Does Green Bay finish off this improbable run, and does Aaron Rodgers wind up back in the postseason?
Yeah, I think they do, because I know the NFL does them a huge favor. I don't know why they're a Sunday night game. I mean, I do, because it's the Packers and they draw. But so Seattle plays the Rams earlier in the afternoon. The Seahawks win that game. Detroit's eliminated from playoff contention. Detroit is going to have nothing to play for. Which, by the way, if I'm Seattle, I'm also royally pissed at the NFL for making the schedule the way they did. The Packers are going to sit there knowing, okay, we have everything to play for, because if we win, we're in. The Lions in that scenario are going to have absolutely nothing to play for other than a little bit of pride. I think the Packers are going to win that game, be the 7th seed, probably go play San Francisco finally. Now, I think the Niners are going to baptize the Packers in that game. I just don't think the Packers have the goods to go to San Francisco and win that game, unless Brock Purdy has just a full-blown meltdown. But, if you're the Packers, if you just get in the playoffs after the way that season was going at 4-8, you got to be thrilled to death. So I do think they will get in. Nothing against Seattle. If they lost, it'd be fascinating to watch the Lions be in a win-win situation as well, but I just don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I got to tell you, too, the biggest break in all of this is the Giants, because they get Minnesota, and we just saw them play them to a draw, essentially, on the road a couple of weeks ago, and they're potentially looking at a scenario where they get them again. It's going to be a fun game.
It's going to be a really fun game. It's funny because the Giants have this advantage of just sitting everybody this week. They're locked into the 6th.
It's like a bye week. It's like a bye week.
Oh, it is. Of course, it's Philadelphia. Last I saw, was a 2-touchdown favorite. I mean, the Giants are just going to lay down, and rightfully so. They don't care. They're just going to start preparing for Minnesota. Minnesota, I would just sit them. I would sit guys if I'm the Vikings.
Yeah.
I don't care about the game. I know there's a world they could be the 2. They cannot be the 1. Look, the Niners are not losing to the Cardinals.
I got you. I got to wrap because I'm running long here, but I'm with you on it. I think both teams should sit. Matt Verderame, Fansided. Check out his work there. Always good to catch up with you, my friend. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
We'll wrap up the hour next. Sorry about that. All right. Yeah. No, I tried to squeeze in one more when I shouldn't have. It was like a rookie mistake. Yeah. No. It's just I love talking to him. He really is. And I love sounds like a it's how we roll. This is how we roll. This is how we roll. Oh. Yeah, I literally slept for about 3 hours this afternoon. Like, I just crashed. Yeah, I slept from about 2 to 5:30. The only reason I got up, like, I fell asleep at like 12:30, woke up at like 1:30 with a phone call because I had to answer a health screening because I got new health insurance and I got to go see I got a new doctor and all that. So I had to do this health screening where they ask you like 7 zillion questions. Best final hour of a Tuesday/Wednesday edition of the show. Thank you for being with us. SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app. The telephone number, as always, 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You could tweet at the show at the back page. Oh, boy. Just keep following Twitter and monitoring Twitter, seeing if there's any new news on Damar Hamlin. Doesn't look like we're going to hear anything else tonight, obviously. But, man, just an impossible sort of situation to be in, that you're just sitting around. I can't imagine what his family and friends, and again, his family was at the game, which, it's different because it's a road game, so you wouldn't know. And the first thing that went through my mind last night was, Joe Buck's doing the right thing, not saying much, because you don't know if his family's watching on TV. Well, it turns out they were at the game. And then when he even said, oh my God, they're doing CPR on him, I'm like, oh my God. If they're watching on TV and hearing that, and then you find out they're at the game, and it obviously sort of changes your perspective on the situation. But, oh man, just brutal, absolutely brutal to watch how that all played out on TV last night. We had a doctor on, Dr. Ben Wedrow, from the Gunderson Clinic in Wisconsin, is a friend of mine, and he's also with WebMD. He's an ER doctor, and so he sees people come into the hospital in cardiac arrest, these sorts of situations. And the one thing he pointed out yesterday, two things he pointed out. One, nobody should die on national TV in front of 12 million people watching and however many people are in the stadium. It's just, that's not how people are supposed to pass. But the other thing he said, and I'm going to point this out again, if you do not know CPR, go and learn it, because you may have the opportunity to save somebody's life. So there's your public service announcement from the cash-in tonight. Go and learn CPR. It's within everybody's ability to do so. Go and do it today. We're back with another hour of the cash-in as we continue on this Tuesday/Wednesday, SportsMap Radio. Wow. NFL is considering calling the Bills-Bengals a no contest and then determining seeding via a random number generator. Jesus Christ. I've actually used random number generators. It's pretty interesting. It's how people do baseball card random. If you like. Exactly. It's exactly right. Yeah. No, but it's true. Interesting. Yeah. Greg Frank actually texted me when I It's a groovy little jam there, John Belmer. Yeah. It's got a little bit of porno vibe to it. It's got some porno music. It's got a little porno music vibe to it, like 80s, early 80s, late 70s porn sort of vibe to it. Yeah. Wow, wow, wow. Yep, that's good stuff. It's good stuff. Good to have you back with us on this Tuesday edition of the show. By the way, did you see what happened? And I'm talking to you too, Belmer, not just the audience. But did everybody see what happened with Skip Bayless? I mean, man, this guy is just a walking F up. He really is. And how Fox Sports continues to allow this, my God, man, everything in the name of ratings. Be damned the consequences. So last night he put out this very insensitive tweet regarding the Damar Hamlin situation. How the NFL has to play the game. There's too much on the line. Literally after this kid is just taken off the field in an ambulance and is fighting for his life. And then he tried to, clean it up a little bit with a subsequent tweet and all that. Well, this morning on, what's it called? What's the name of the show that him and Shannon do on Fox Sports? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what it is. Anyway, the two of them normally do the show together. Well, this morning, Skip Bayless was by himself. And nobody knows why. But it felt like Shannon Sharp basically sent a message saying, hey, you know what? You can dig out of this by yourself. I'm not going to be here. No, I can't blame him. But it was very interesting to see Shannon not there and Skip just literally having to do the show alone. Yeah, not pretty. Not pretty at all. Do I have the video? Let's see if I can find the Bayless video this morning, because it was quite, and him and Shannon lately, it's been pretty ugly between the two of them. Some of the exchanges on the air have not been dignified, and mostly on the side, of course, of Skip Bayless, who makes a living saying incendiary things and getting away with it. Well, this time he expected to come in and probably have a little cover tonight with, here's the actual tweet. No doubt the NFL is considering postponing the rest of this game, but how? This late in the season, a game of this magnitude is crucial to the regular season outcome, which suddenly seems so irrelevant. There's nothing good. Let me give everybody a little advice here. From somebody who's been in broadcasting longer than I care to say, although I say it all the time. Let me tell you something. There is no good that can come of saying something like that when you're in the sort of situation that all of us were watching take place last night. There was just nothing good that could come out of it at all. So why on earth Skip Bayless chose that moment to say that? And then he comes on TV this morning and he tried to sound contrite. The problem is with him, it all looks fake. The problem with Skip is everything he does on TV, when it comes to trying to look sincere about something, it just comes off as fake. So when he comes on TV this morning and, basically says, we're going to do our best to try and be sensitive to the situation and all of these different things, nobody takes him seriously. So he goes and makes this, wide-ranging statement this morning as they're starting that show that he's on. Yeah, it didn't look good. Here's actually what it sounded like.
Jen, allow me to say up front that I apologize for what we're going to set out to do here today if it offends anyone. Because
he didn't even apologize for what he said. Did you hear that? Unbelievable. Listen again.
Jen, allow me to say up front that I apologize for what we're going to set out to do here today if it offends anyone, because we're going to try to do the show pretty much as we usually do the show. But I'll admit up front.
Oh, that breath. Yeah. Oh,
I'm still shook up
so
by what
terrible.
happened last night
to
DeMar Hamlin. In fact, I'm still wrecked.
I'm wrecked. Were you wrecked when they suggested they should play the game? This guy's he's such a toolbox. He really is. And I don't get it. I really don't. And don't tell me what their ratings are. I don't care. The Kardashians used to have a zillion people watching it every night. Doesn't mean it's good programming. I mean, come on. It's a laughing stock. So that's part of what you got from Skip It. I'm not going to play the whole statement because it's going to make me want to throw something. It's just the worst. I think that show with him and Shannon Sharp, I think that thing is on the way out. I don't know who jumps in if Shannon bails, but somebody they're going to have to do something. I think that show is on its last leg right now. Oh, I like Shannon. He's very real. He's raw, and it's not fake. Yeah, if you agree or disagree with him, who cares? That's what sports debate is about. But with Skip, it's personal, it's catty, it's vicious, it's malicious. The whole thing with the Russell Westbrook thing, like all of that stuff. And then today he tried to get on LeBron's good side because he's been crushing LeBron forever. And today he tried, getting all sweet on LeBron. Back-to-back 40-point games, yada, yada, yada. Just go away. It's just... Probably. I mean, I'm sure he did. I'm thankful to have brain damage because really, for real, I'm thankful to have brain damage for this one reason. I don't have as quick. I don't have as long a memory as some people. So luckily, I forget a lot of these things, which sometimes I wish I had a better memory and that I hadn't had so many different had so much head trauma in my life. But at the same time, man, there's times I'm glad because if I remembered half the stuff that I wish I could remember, I'd probably be even more bitter. And then look, people, you do what you want in your private life, and if you're religious, I grew up Catholic. I always tell people I'm a recovering Catholic. I grew up, in church. I almost at one point I thought about entering the priesthood. I mean, I was into all that. And you've got Dan Orlovsky and the folks on ESPN literally doing prayers on the show. I mean, come on. I mean, I look, again, I get it. That's your religion, and everybody's got a right to practice the religion that is nearest and dearest to them. And some people need it and lean on it in times of trouble, and that's all great. But I got to on TV? Really? We're doing prayers now, prayer hour on ESPN. Remember the EWTN? Anybody remember that? The Eternal Word Television Network. Is that still on? The religious channel? I don't know. I don't see it on YouTube TV. You know the channel I'm talking about though, right? Have you ever seen it? Yeah. I used to see it all the time, and they always had that nun that was on, and you'd turn it on at 1:00 in the morning after watching the late games, and whatever her name was, she'd always be on there. And she was a cool old lady, and she used to have this religious show. I'm like, is that where we're going now? I mean, look, you can have all the positive wishes and feelings and all this stuff, but they're doing literally doing a prayer on TV on ESPN. So if you're an atheist or an agnostic, which a lot of people are, you just had to have that, run by you. It's just come on already. Again, I have no issues with religion at all. I'm an agnostic. The only difference between me and religious people is I believe we go somewhere when we die. I just don't know where. I just have no idea. We're going. Something happens. I don't think this is the end, but I don't sit there and tell people where they're going or how they're getting there or how to, be saved and things like that. Man, Orlovsky drives me. Orlovsky's becoming one of these guys that just drives me nuts. And everybody runs to his defense when I go after him and all that stuff. But man, Orlovsky just gets on my nerves. He really does. He gets on my last nerve. He tried playing off this whole thing. Ever since I had a brief little thing with him on Twitter. And Belmer, do you follow me on Twitter? Yeah. I don't know if you saw it when I got into it with him on Twitter, because he was the first person when Jeff Saturday won his first game to say, "Oh God, see, all you people in the media said he shouldn't have gotten the job." Well, now, ever since he's lost every game since, all of a sudden Dan Orlovsky went catatonic and forgot all the things he said. And when I called him out, he was like, "I was just rooting for a friend." No, you weren't cheering for a friend. You were trying to mock the media who said he shouldn't have got the job, which he shouldn't have. And then Orlovsky, you see all these minions come after me. Whatever. My God. I mean, really? Come on. Do you get where I'm coming from, Belmer? Am I nuts? Or see, maybe oh my God. This is totally out of left field, but I had this conversation today. I was talking about this with Belmer off the air. I'll share it with the audience. I was having a conversation with a medical professional today because I'm getting ready to new health benefits. So I'm going to see a I have to go see a doctor and all this. So they screen you for a bunch of different things. And during the call, they do like a screening for anxiety or depression and all these different things. And the lady on the other end of the phone, who I think is just, a nurse or something like that, says, so have you found, within the last 2 weeks, have you found that you're lashing out or snapping at people or unnecessarily angry or more so than usual? And I literally just turned, I'm like, lady, I host a talk show for a living. I'm always angry. I'm always lashing out or snapping at somebody. That's the default for me. And she just started laughing, and she was like, oh, okay. And I could hear her like typing in the computer in the background, and I'm like, she's probably typing, this guy is out of his mind. Belmer, I'm like, the older we get, the less impatient we get with certain things. That, and you'll see, Belmer, when you get the older you get, you too, yes. And I said to her, I'm like, that's natural. That's not, a sign of mental illness or I'm imbalanced or something. I said, that's just how I am. She's laughing on the other end of the phone. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Our 2-for-1 tonight is Grant Fuhr, Pro Hockey Hall of Famer Grant Fuhr, who I was lucky enough to get to talk to in the first hour of the show tonight. If for those who didn't hear it, it's coming up in about 15 minutes, my conversation with the Pro Hockey Hall of Famer Grant Fuhr. Stick around, more to do as we continue in this hour of the Cash-In at SportsMap Radio. I got Orlovsky doing prayer circles on the friggin' ESPN. I just wanted to lose my mind today. I'm like, are you kidding me? To be with you on this Tuesday, SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app. You can watch us on Twitch, twitch.tv. Jason Page 77 there. People you've ever interviewed. And it's not necessarily the people you would think it is. To be with you on this Tuesday, SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app. You can watch us on Twitch, twitch.tv. Jason Page 77 there. I was lucky a few weeks ago. I got to go out to the first game of the AHL affiliate for the Seattle Kraken, the Coachella Valley Firebirds, who opened up like their first 20-plus games on the road this season before their arena was finally ready for prime time. And they played their first game couple weeks back at Acrisure Arena in just outside of Palm Springs, California, where I live. And while I was there, I was lucky enough to be introduced to our guest tonight on the show. Our 2-for-1 is Grant Fuhr, Pro Hockey Hall of Famer, one of the great goaltenders of the game, somebody I grew up watching as a kid. And people always ask me, what are the coolest people you've ever interviewed? And it's not necessarily the people you would think it is. It's always the people I grew up watching. That's always kind of wild for me. And as somebody who's 45 years old, Grant Fuhr fits right in that window of guys that I grew up watching. And now, as heartbreaking as it is, because I grew up in Connecticut, so I was a Hartford Whalers fan. So it always just destroys me when I have to talk about hockey, because my hockey fandom died when the Whalers left Hartford and fled to Carolina. Thank you, Peter Carmanos. So I'm thrilled to welcome this man to the show. Grant Fuhr joins us on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio, on the SportsMap Radio app. He's doing great work on the Coachella Valley Firebirds home TV broadcasts, and he joins us on the show tonight. First of all, Grant, thank you for coming on. It's got to be nice to have some games to call in your new arena there as well.
It is. I mean, it's kind of nice to have hockey here in the Valley. So we've been starved for something to do at night here, so nice to have a little hockey. It
is crazy, though. Let's be honest. The idea of hockey in a place where it gets to 120 degrees during the summer is kind of nuts. Like, there's no way in your wildest imagination. I think you've been out here for a while, right? You've been in the Valley for a bit. There's no way you could have imagined this ever would happen one day.
No, I mean, at one point we didn't think Wayne would ever end up in LA either. So Wayne got to LA. You got hockey in Florida. You got hockey in Texas. So hence, here we are in the Coachella Valley.
Yeah, no, it is wild. And this team, by the way, and I got a lot I want to talk to you about, but this team, which is the Kraken's AHL affiliate, has been really good this year, and that has to bode well, you would think, for the Kraken and what's coming down the pike for them.
No, they've been really good this year, especially I think we started, 22 in a row on the road, and came out of that, I think, second or third in the conference, and now they're battling for first. So it says a lot about the character of the guys they brought in.
The AHL has a zillion teams, it feels like, from the East Coast all the way out to the West Coast. Where I'm from originally in Connecticut, obviously they had the Hartford Wolfpack, the Bridgeport Islanders, which used to be the Sound Tigers. I mean, there's a lot of hockey up that way. Talk a little bit about the AHL. As somebody who played in the NHL, you basically look at the AHL as the AAA, baseball sort of equivalent of what the NHL is. Try to describe for people who may not have been exposed, people that are listening to us in major cities where they may not have AHL hockey. Try to give them a sense for the caliber of play versus what you see in the NHL and the biggest differences you might see.
Well, I think a lot of what you're going to see is your future stars. I mean, guys that maybe aren't quite ready to step up and play in the National Hockey League yet, but are too good to play junior. I mean, we just had Shane Wright down here for a while. where he's in that boat where he's an 18-year-old that might be too good for junior, but not quite good enough for the NHL. So he was able to play a few games here and actually looked like he fit in really well. So you're going to see some really good hockey, and it's competitive because everybody wants to play in the National Hockey League. So the guys don't take that night off here or there.
The inevitable question I always have to ask from, when you left the game, well, I think you stopped playing about 20 years ago, to where the game is now, the biggest difference in the style of play that you notice is?
I think the biggest difference is the guys are more skilled overall. I think first and foremost. Obviously, everybody's bigger, faster. They train better now than we did. They all eat better than we did, undoubtedly. It's just the evolution of the athlete, I think, is the biggest difference.
One of the things that always troubles me about hockey in sort of analyzing the way the sport is marketed to people and all of that is sometimes I get the feeling that, we were just talking about this a couple weeks ago. I said a baseball reliever makes more than 90% of the NHL players do. Even your big, and I'm talking your biggest stars. So when I look at the compensation that guys make for, Major League Baseball or obviously the NBA and the NFL and things like that, and then I look at, you're talking about the skill level of these guys, and I watch the NHL, and the skill level is off the charts. I'm trying to figure out why the salaries don't feel like they're commensurate with what other leagues are paying their big stars. And is there anything that could tip that in the direction of the players ultimately?
Well, I think the biggest thing is TV revenue. I think first and foremost, you have to have TV revenue to generate that kind of money. Hockey's limited to between 18 and 20,000 seats, whereas you get a baseball stadium, a football stadium, you've got 60, 70,000 seats. So that's a lot more bodies in there that are paying a lot more for beer and enjoyment. So we're kind of limited when it comes to people we're out in front of. So you have to have that bigger TV deal to generate more revenue.
Yeah, you certainly do. And, sometimes I feel like just in terms of the marketing of the game, and this isn't me just trying to sit there and have a bang on the league session. It's more trying to figure out solutions to make hockey more palatable and popular around the country. Because, we always talk about the idea of hockey being a regional sport, which, by the way, I think baseball has become too. I think it's largely a regional game when you look at TV ratings and what it does in local markets versus the ratings it gets nationally. It feels like both of them are regional sports, yet one is obviously paying their players a lot more. From a marketing standpoint, is there something that, as somebody who's been around the league as a player and a coach, that you'd like to see the league do better in terms of marketing its stars and its good teams?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to market your stars, but the biggest thing is you got to get people in the building. Once people see hockey live, they become fans. And that's the biggest thing that I see is we're in a market here where people aren't used to seeing hockey. So you may see a game here or there on TV, which doesn't do it the justice that it should. The best way to describe hockey is you need to see it live. You get to realize how fast it really is, how big the guys really are, and you become a huge fan of the game just by getting them in to see it that once or twice. They'll want to keep coming. And that's how the game grows.
It's so true. I've said there are two sports, frankly three, but two sports in particular that I think don't do justice to it. One is soccer, which I can't stand to watch on television. But in person, when you could see the entire pitch and see what's going on, it's great to watch. And I think hockey is the other. I think, watching it on TV, it almost feels like you're watching a video game sometimes. Whereas when you're there in person and seeing these guys move up and down the ice, doing what they do on skates, that sort of agility is really second to none. As a guy that coached in the league, and sort of can analyze it both as a player and a coach, if you had it to do again as a coach in the league, what would you do differently?
Being as I looked after goalies, not a whole lot. Our whole deal is you got to stop the puck. But I grew up in an offensive system. I love offensive hockey. I like to see aggressive hockey. So I think as a coach, that's the style of play I like to see. I like what Coachella's done where they're an aggressive team. And they can play the rough game. They can play the finesse game. They can play that hard grinding game. And I like that kind of hockey where it's always fast and up-tempo.
Grant Fuhr, Pro Hockey Hall of Famer, is joining us on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio, doing great work on the Coachella Valley Firebirds AHL TV broadcast, somebody who's been around the game for a long time. What's it like for you to see Wayne Gretzky doing TV now?
You know what? It's always fun to watch. I mean, we obviously go back a long ways, so the fact that he's doing TV, I've started to fiddle around with it a little bit. To think that would have ever got to that point we'd have never seen that back in the day, but now it seems okay.
Would you like to do it on the national level? Would you like to, if TNT or ESPN called you up, would you like to go and do it on that level?
You know what? I've had fun with it so far, so you never know. I mean, I never close doors. That's the one thing. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy being around the game, and I still love the game.
When you were done coaching, did you feel like you got it out of your system, or did you feel like if the opportunity ever presented itself again, it's something you would do?
You know what? When I got out of coaching, I wanted to take a couple of years off just to basically clear my head a little bit. I mean, I'd been in the game since I was 4 years old, so it was time for a little break to just try something else, and I get to fiddle around and play a little bit of golf and that sort of thing. But I always knew at some point I'd go back to hockey just because it's in my blood and it's something that I love doing and it's something I love being around.
If I gave you one player that you get to watch today, I'm going to put you on the spot with this one. If you got if you get one game to watch, one team, one player, who's the guy that you're tuning in to watch right now?
Right now, I'd be watching Connor McDavid. And every night, there's something that's going to be highlight reel that he's going to do. So I have no issues with that one. That's an easy one player.
Yeah, Connor McDavid. Is there a particular team?
I'm still an Oiler fan, but again, I've become a fan of Seattle now. So, but no, I enjoy hockey in general. I like watching all the different teams. I like seeing the different styles, seeing how different teams play. So I'm still a student of the game. What
do you make of the way Seattle has built this organization, as somebody now that's working sort of on the inside and able to see the inner workings of this? And obviously they're off to a nice start this year. Talk to me a little bit about this Seattle franchise. And, we've seen that expansion teams could have success fast. It used to be it took years to become good as an expansion team. Las Vegas proved, several years back, you can build it quickly. What's allowing Seattle to do that?
Well, I think what they've done is they've built for the long term. I mean, last year there were some growing pains, which everybody saw. But at the same time, there were some positives. And with the people they've got there and players they've brought in, that sort of thing, it's allowed them to have some success this year. And each year, I think it's going to steadily build and get better and better. And they're going to have some young guys who are going to be able to step in and carry that forward. So you're going to have a good team for years to come.
Yeah, you certainly are. All right, before I let you go, I got to get you out with this one. This is going to be asking you to tap into your memory a little bit. When you think back to ever having to go and play a game at the then Hartford Civic Center, which was a mall at the time, and play against the Whalers, give me something. Give me a memory. Give me something about having to go to Hartford to play against the Whalers.
It could be the goal song. We heard that way too often. I think we lost 11-0 there one day, so we got to hear it a lot. So that left a lasting scar.
I actually do have one more question. I was just thinking about this today, and I wanted to make sure I asked you about this because we've been talking about this DeMar Hamlin story, which I'm sure you've heard about, this poor kid from the Buffalo Bills who got hurt last night. You've been around hockey a long time. You've seen a lot of things. Is there anything you can harken back to in your career when you saw DeMar Hamlin in this position, on the field last night? Is there anything that kind of hit you in terms of something you may have seen as a player, whether high school, collegiate, professional ranks, that sort of reminded you of what you saw last night?
St. Louis. When I was in St. Louis, we went through a scary situation like that where Chris Pronger got hit on the left side of his chest with a puck and did the same thing, kind of got up and then dropped. So, and had a cardiac issue. So it brought back some memories that weren't good memories, and you just hope the best for him and his family.
Yeah, and something, that I was talking to a doctor last night about that, Grant, and he was saying this is typically an injury you would see with baseball, and it's an issue you'd see with hockey because of the nature of the puck in the baseball and where it could hit you in the chest. It's not something you would typically see in football. So that's why I was kind of interested to hear you mention that, because it seems like that's where you see this injury more. And I'm sure it's happened more than just to Pronger.
I'm guessing it has, but that's the only time I saw it live and in person. And it's a scary thing to see.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Well, listen, Grant Fuhr, congratulations on the role with the Firebirds. Continued success to them all season long, the affiliate for the Seattle Kraken. Let's get out on the golf course soon. You're going to have to take some money from me.
I look forward to it.
Grant Fuhr, appreciate the time. Have yourself a great night. We'll come back and wrap up the hour next. No, I said I got him running the board for $2,500 a month. It's like, my God. He's just, nice kid. I have nothing personal against him. It's just, I need competent people, Yeah, like using my show as your friggin' training ground. Like, whatever. I mean, I could even deal with that because everybody needs a place to train. So I get it. All right, I know you got to go. Thank you for your help. You're set for the podcast, and I'll see you tomorrow. We're working together tomorrow. All right, cool. I'll talk to you later. Bye. That does it for us on the video side as well. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, I'm tired. I'm going to go. We'll catch you all back here tomorrow, Wednesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, SportsMap Radio on the SportsMap Radio app, on Twitch, all other video platforms too, but Twitch, Jason Page 77 there. Good to talk to all of you. Have a great night. Bye. Try that again.